Using this strategy, people earned 49.77% instead of 14.65%. In this episode, I'm going to address how to earn safer returns for long-term financial goals using a 5-year strategy. Get ready. You're going to be blown away with some opportunities that you probably didn't know existed before. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've helped many thousands of people prepare for a comfortable retirement, save money for long-term goals. This is money that they don't want to jeopardize. They want to make sure they earn predictable rates of return, and they don't want to be clobbered with the negative impact of taxes, inflation, and market volatility. So I direct them to put their money in a diversified portfolio, oftentimes of maximum funded indexed universal life insurance contracts, where they can earn between 7 to 10% average rates of return. But many years, they can earn higher than that. When I say that, people go, "What? I've never seen an insurance policy do that." Well, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I would say this, a laser fund, and I call it the laser fund because it's an acronym that I've used for years. It stands for Liquid Assets Safely Earning Returns. Now, a laser fund is built on an IUL, Indexed Universal Life chassis. So it is an Indexed Universal Life, but not all Indexed Universal Life policies would qualify to be classified as a laser fund. In fact, unfortunately, most would not qualify because they're not structured correctly or funded properly. When they are, they can perform far more superior than IRAs and 401ks invested in the market. You don't have the market volatility. They're tax-free. And as far as I'm concerned, you show me any IRA or 401k that outperforms what a maximum funded laser fund can do in the long term, and I would be shocked. I've seen these for decades, and this is where people are able to accumulate a bigger nest egg faster, safer, and every $1 million that they accumulate inside a portfolio of laser funds can generate predictably $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year. That's a 10% payout. If they live to be 120, from age 65 to age 120, $100,000 a year of tax-free income for as long as they live without depleting principal. You show me a portfolio of IRAs or 401ks invested in the market that can do that, because the average market return for retirees is unfortunately only about 3.5%. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a little-known strategy that sometimes people don't think about, and this is using indexed universal life, where your money accumulates tax-free. In a nutshell, when you use indexing, you are not putting your money at risk in the market. There's other episodes on this very channel that talk about indexing. In a nutshell, if you don't understand it, you're accumulating your money for the purpose of living benefits, not death benefits in an insurance policy. You're doing what E.F. Hutton, who was the brainchild behind the emergence of universal life, designed it for in the first place, for living benefits, not the death benefit. It has a death benefit. What you're actually doing is taking the least amount of insurance that the IRS will let you get away with, and you're putting in the most money, the most premium that the IRS allows, as fast as it allows you to, and it turns into this tax-free cash cow. So that if you set aside, $10,000 a year, $100,000 a year, we've had many clients who put in $500,000, and that $500,000, without adding any new money to it, doubled to $1 million in 7 to 10 years because they were earning average returns between 7.2 to 10%. Use rule of 72 math, you can figure that out. Your money's going to double about every 7 to 10 years. So $500,000 doubles to $1 million. $1 million then doubles to $2 million. $2 million doubles to $4 million. $4 million doubles to $8 million. We actually have clients who started out with $500,000 30 years ago that now have $8 million in their portfolio of indexed universal life policies, laser funds, and that $8 million is generating between $600,000 to $800,000 a year of growth or tax-free income without depleting principal. Now, When you have your money in those insurance policies, you can link your returns to an index. Linking means you are not authorizing the insurance company to take any of your million. Let's use $1 million example. Let's say you have $1 million. You are not authorizing them to put your million at risk in the market. You're linking your return to an index. Let's use the S&P 500, which is a common one. So they simply take the interest they're earning each year, okay, on that million, and they're buying upside options in the index that you chose that they offered. So that if the S&P went up 10%, they'll pay you 10% or up to a cap. Sometimes the caps are 10.5, sometimes they're 12, sometimes there is no cap. And this is why many people from March of 2020 to March of 2021 locked in gains of 61.33% on a one-year point-to-point. Those opportunities come, not all the time, but the average return is great because you're able to participate when the market goes up because the insurance company is using the interest on your money to buy upside options. But if the market tanks, the options expire worthless. You didn't lose the million you started with. Your principal is protected. But every year you make money, like in 2017, we had many clients who locked in gains of 16%, 25%. So on $1 million, they locked in 160,000 or 250,000. So then in 2018, they started out with 1,250,000, which means if the market would have crashed 40%, at the end of 2018, they would have still had their 1,250,000. You lock in your gains every year and you reset. That's why I love indexing. On this very channel, there's all kinds of different ways or strategies to use indexing. Here's a few. The most common strategy is what is called the one-year point-to-point, and I have a video explaining that. And that's where you measure the difference in the S&P from 1 year, let's say the 15th of a given month, July 15th to July 15th of the next year. If the S&P went up 10%, they pay you 10%, or they pay you whatever it went up by. If it went up 30%, but the cap's 19%, they cap you out at 19. That's a one-year point-to-point with a cap. There's also a one-year point-to-point with no cap, and then they minus maybe 5%. That's called a threshold or a spread. That's explained in another episode. Sometimes people use a 2-year point-to-point strategy, which I've explained in other episodes, and that's where you wait 2 years, and the caps are usually higher, like 19%, or there is no cap, and they may have a 10% threshold or spread, so that if the market went up 30% over 2 years, they subtract 10 and you actually get credited a 20% gain over 24 months. In this episode, this will help you understand a 5-year strategy. Why? Because I would recommend you consider maybe 20% of your allocation be to a 5-year strategy. Didn't have to be. We have many people who will put 40% of their money linked to a 1-year point-to-point, 40% to a 2-year, and maybe 20% to a 5-year strategy. Now, what does this mean? You're diversifying. So if you had $1 million, that would be 400,000 under the 1-year point-to-point, 400,000 is linked to the 2-year, and maybe 200,000 is linked to a 5-year. Now, unlike the 2-year, where you're waiting 2 years, because that's maybe a downside. You have to wait 2 years to find out what you're going to be credited. Okay? If you're impatient, maybe this isn't for you. But if you patiently wait 2 years, you're able to see the gain. And the insurance company, because option costs are cheaper, can have the caps be higher, more like 19% or no cap. And then they have a threshold charge. On a 5-year strategy, often what they'll do is you link, let's say from 2016 to 2021. Now, you have to wait 5 years to see what your gain is. But the likelihood that the market is going to be up over a 5-year period is pretty good odds, okay? But what if you happen to hit a downturn like March of 2020 when the market dropped about 30% in the COVID-19 pandemic? See, if you would have had your money in a 5-year strategy and the end of the 5 years just happened to be when the market crashed, even though it's spread out over 5 years, your return would have been 14.65% over the 5-year period. That's okay. You didn't lose money, but on a 5-year strategy, many of the companies that we use for clients all over America, they take the last year of the 5 years and they average it. So it's called a 5-year point to point, okay? And it's point to last year average is the actual technical term for this. So on a 5-year strategy with the last year being averaged, they're going to take the average return each month for the last 12 months of the 5 years. So there's 60 months from the 49th month to the 60th month. They're going to take and average those returns to sort of smooth it out. What difference did it make in my example? If you would have linked and you would have gone to the year 2020 or 2021, instead of having 14.65%, by averaging it out, your return would have jumped to 49.77%. Huge difference, right? So to be clear, in that particular example, where I compared a 14.65 to actually a 49.77, that was going back to March of 2015. And if you had had a 5-year strategy and you ended in March of 2020, oh, talk about picking one of the worst little crashes in a 5-year period, you still would have had the 14.65% return. I wanted to make that clear. But by using the last year average of the 5 years, instead of 14.65, you would have had a 49.77% crediting return, even though the end of the 5 years was in a horrible downturn. Does that make sense? So sometimes a 5-year strategy will help you out because of that last year averaging that sort of is a smoothing period. So that's why sometimes a lot of the advisors that I mentor and train that I point my students to, they will recommend, well, maybe you ought to put 20% of your allocation, if you have $1 million, maybe 200,000 in a 5-year strategy with the last year being averaged out. Because sometimes over 5 years, your chance of a pretty good gain is worth assigning maybe 20%, maybe even as high as 50% to that kind of a strategy. I'll give you an example of what that could have achieved on an historical average basis. So on a historical basis, if you had 50% in a 2-year indexed account with a 19% cap and the other 50% in the 5-year indexed, okay, that has no cap, your average crediting rate for this period, this is I think a 20-year period, would have been 14%. Not bad. Depending upon the timing and what's going on in the market, it may behoove you to diversify into different indexing strategies. The key is, in order to earn an average of 7, 9, 10% or more rate of return, it's going to include some periods that are higher and lower. And sometimes those periods could be expanded to 2-year point-to-point or 5-year point-to-point, especially if they average the last 12 months of that 5-year period. So the key here is to get educated and make sure you meet with an IUL specialist who understands all of these and can help match you up with the right product, the right strategy, so that you can diversify properly and protect your money and achieve the greatest potential possible. So what's the downside? Well, if you use a 5-year strategy, you're going to have to wait 5 years to see what your gain is or your return. If you're impatient, you don't like to do that, then maybe the 5-year strategy isn't for you, but the 1-year point-to-point may be the cat's meow for you. Whatever it is, I want to gift you a copy of this textbook on indexed universal life. It's called The Laser Fund, How to Diversify and Create the Foundation for a Tax-Free Retirement. Now, this retails for $20. Now, I will gift you a copy of this book free. If you go to laserfund.com, click on the link below, I'll pay for the book. You contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling, and there's options there to listen and learn and watch and learn. Why am I passionate about this? This is 300 pages. It contains all kinds of charts and graphs and explanations, but also you flip it over, and this has 100 pages, 12 chapters, with 62 actual client stories of how the Laser Fund has helped them achieve all kinds of financial goals, not just retirement. Emergency funds, college funding for their kids and grandkids, working capital for your business, real estate management, on and on and on. So I call it the financial Swiss Army knife. I want to gift you a copy. Make sure and claim it. Go to laserfund.com, and there's also options there where you can learn from our educational webinars. But I'm passionate about providing you with insights into opportunities that maybe you didn't even know existed before.